Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Denise, and with me to present is QAD and MRP expert, Don Lindsey. Today, immediately following his presentation, Don will include a very brief demo of 16.3.1 Production Orders Data Loader, which is the image you see here. This will just be a quick 2 to 3 minutes. I just wanted to give you a heads up so Don can just go right into the demo following his presentation. Our headliner. Here is just some of the experience instructor extraordinaire Don Lindsey brings.
Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are, and thank you, Denise, for that kind introduction. Today, we'd like to take a look about the new functionality in QAD referred to as production orders. These were introduced in 2016, and they combine discrete work orders, repetitive cumulative orders, flow scheduling, and master scheduling orders into an all-in-one new set of functions. Today, we'd like to talk about the differences between the old standard work order and the new production order process to introduce you to this exciting new tool QAD has made available for multi-mode manufacturing. The fundamentals of new production orders are that the manufacturing type and the order type, along with the make-buy code, determine what kind of order you're going to produce. There's item, site, and BOM setup we'll talk about. Order status is pretty much the same as we saw with the old work orders. New need dates, release date, order dates, but the new changes in the way quantities are dealt with in terms of quantity to start, expected quantity to complete, and yield are important. We'll talk about product lines, the new item pick logic, and routing data. Here's a list of the subjects we'll talk about. We'll talk about some concepts, terminology, item master. We'll look at production order setup. We'll talk about the control file. We'll talk about 16.3.1, the new production order maintenance, production pick list. We'll cover a little bit about production order issues, receipts, and accounting functions. Production orders encompass an extensive set of new functionality. I won't be able to cover everything in 45 minutes that we have this morning, so I've gone on some assumptions. As with all QAD functions, there's warnings, errors that you have to be cognizant of. There's delete and archive. There's plenty of reports, browse collection, menu collections. We'll talk about those. And I'll assume that you have a fair understanding of the current work order system. However, I won't be covering security. We'll talk about repetitive functionality a little bit later in the year. Same with MRP scheduling and CRP. I won't talk about subcontracts or the shop floor control. I'll talk just a little bit about automated solutions and then cost, which could be a whole nother webinar in itself. Also, be cautious, menus have changed. A couple of the highlights of production orders. The new picking policy, probably the biggest change as you'll see. We've got new reserved and backflush locations. There's a tight integration to serialization and packaging. There's a simplified API. It's integrated with automated solutions and the new patching functionality. As I always warn, there's a lot of new concepts, acronyms, words we need to learn and understand. So much to be aware of. So over the last couple of years, there's been several enhancements to the manufacturing ordering process in QAD. In 2008, we saw the introduction of Lean and Kanban. Then in 2010, we saw the new master scheduling, production scheduling workbench. You should be using those. In 2016, we saw the quality compliance, lot attributes, etc. 2016, we got the serialization and packaging. Then in 2016, the new automated solutions came in with the packaging functionality. And then finally today, we'll talk about the new production orders. Just a quick word about QAD's new serialization functionality. There's a tight integration between serialization and production orders. This augments the already in place functions of lot trace. It links together serial numbers into what is commonly called a license plate, where you can track the license plate in terms of materials, movement, and that one barcode will bring with it all of the sub activities on a pallet or a box. The serialization, you can do bookings, you can create serial numbers, you can do receiving and product structures, you can create packages, you can issue in packages. Great functionality. You should take a look at the packaging functions. Along with that is the ability to look at default packaging structures, and as I mentioned, the license plate or license ID functionality for material movement. This is the new production order functionality menu, resides in 16. So today we're going to take a look at the basic setup. We're going to create a production order. We'll talk about printing and controlling, a little bit about PACKLIST or PICKLIST, issuing components, receiving production orders, and doing accounting close, and a lot of other stuff that we'll probably cover in later webinars. A word of caution for those of you who, like myself, use menu numbers, as I've been doing for many, many years through SE, early versions EE, and now 2020. Many of the new menu items are not the old menu items. For example, 16.1 used to be work orders, but no more. Now it's 16.3.1. 16.13.13 used to be work order bill maintenance, but no. Now it's production order receipt. I've found over 100 menu changes in the new 2020 version. So just a caution. Just a word about calendars. We talked about dates in QAD. In January, there is the typical work week. You create these calendars. There's different kinds of calendars. You can have a domain default. You can have site calendars. These play very heavily into scheduling and capacity requirements planning. And the new production lines require calendars in and of themselves. There's always the exceptions that need to be taken into account and scheduled. Here we see the new 16.1.13.3 and the new 16.1.13.5 non-working days, because you don't want to schedule things when you're not going to be available to work. The item master is probably pretty much the same as we saw with the old production orders. There are some new changes in what is called the picking logic. Here we see the 1.4.16 item site inventory data, or if you prefer, the 1.4.1 inventory data frame. The first frame contains pretty much the same stuff that we're used to seeing: ABC class, lot control, PO receipts, etc. But now we come to the second frame of the picking, called the picking frame or picking data frame. And here we see 4 primary new fields: a allocation policy field, where you can denote either detailed or general allocation. We've talked about this in the past. You can now designate a particular item as to its allocation. There's a pick policy. Do you want to pick this part, not pick it? You want to pick it and transfer? We'll talk about it in terms of locations. The allocations: if you transfer material, do you want the allocations to go with the movement, or do you want to drop those allocations? And then the issue policy, we all remember this from previous in 1.4.17, the little checkbox yes. Well, now you've got the option of having a pick and issue, don't pick, or pick and transfer. We also have allocate single lot. There's a manufacturing picking order sequence that you can have, very powerful. You can do it ascending, descending, depending on how you have your part numbers set up. There's the key item that comes from the item master file, and you have some picking multiple minimum and maximum quantities. In 1.4.17 or 7, this is where we have removed the issue policy. You've got the fields that impact the production orders. There is the order policy, order quantity, you have batch size, order period, safety stock, BOM, and routing functionality. We'll talk about that a little bit. There is the make by code, your minimum, maximum multiples. We're going to determine how you what order quantities you've got. Then you've got the up base yield and the yield percentage, which is going to play importantly into that new production order functionality. In 13.5, production product structure, this is the .NET. I personally don't like the .NET environment. I always like to change it back to the desktop where I can see the parent and component, because that in essence, according to Apex, is what a bill of material is. Always important, the quantity per, obviously, your start stop, and now we've got this opcode in the BOM maintenance. It was there before, but now it plays an even more important part in the production order calculations. This determines the impact of this component on the backflushing and issue functions in production orders, enables cost and yield calculations, and determines how components are going to print on various pick lists. The 15.5 formula maintenance, not too much change there. Still got the operation. You still have to deal with 15.5 or 1.5 and 9 if you're going to change the formulas in their batch quantities. There are routable production orders. Now, this has been around for a fair amount of time, but this plays into the new production order and manufacturing arena. You can effectively set the make by code to a routable code, either in the item master or the item planning. And when components are included in the production order bill, the system will automatically create production orders for the routable items. You can use those to allocate, release, process components, all that stuff that you do with a normal one, only it's automatically produced. So this you can see in the new master scheduling workbench, production order maintenance, status changes, allocations, pick lists, and production print. Phantom's always been around. Phantom use-up logic applies to global items whose allocation policy, the new policy code, is set to detail. The use-up logic is it first allocates and consumes available inventory for the item and then explodes the remaining components into their requirements. You can see the global phantom at the item level and the local phantom at the bill of material level. And this applies to maintenance, splits, bill maintenance, allocations, pick list, transfers, all of those functionalities. Big word of caution with phantoms. Departments, probably not too many changes that are there. In the work center, you've got, here's a picture of the old 2012 EE work center. And now you can see that with 2020, the layout has changed a little from the earlier versions. Here I've got some new fields. I've got a supplier field. There's the backflush location we'll talk about. There's this new transaction quantity method, whether you want transact by completed or processed. There's a new supervisor field that you can nail somebody for. And then your standard queue setup run times and rates for the work centers. The routings, pretty much the same. How there are two fields that existed before that now, again, play a more important role in the production order. That is the milestone. A milestone designates an operation that allows you to backflush all previous operations. That plays important in your component requirements and the PICKLIST print stuff. Auto labor, if you backflush labor, you want to make sure that you properly set your auto labor report checkbox for routings. Just to recap, if you set the first operation milestone to yes, this is going to determine the defaults in your new 16.5.12 production order component issue. Setting the last operation to a milestone is required if you use 6.1, the new gather data or automated solutions functionality. And as we mentioned, the way that you consume product at the operation through the bill of material by that op code in the BOM. Another function that's been around for a long time, alternate bills of material and routers. You've got a 13.5 alternate structure and the 15.5 or 14.15.1 alternate routing structures. Those can be so beneficial in affording flexibility into your manufacturing arena with the new production orders. In the new production order functionality, there are basically two new types of locations. Both are considered controlled. The controlled locations, pretty much the old standard locations that we are familiar with: secured control, storage of inventory, restricted transactions, but you also now have a product line reserved location and a work center reserved location. You also have shop floor locations, both a product line backflush location and a work center backflush location. Here's one of the new menu items. This always confuses me. I got 1.1.18.1. This is where you define your locations, where you're going to stock inventory. You want to pay attention to your fields in Location Master, because this affords you a great deal of enhanced location functionality for production orders. One of those new functions are reserved location availability. With the new locations and the location or collections that are denoted in the new 2020, you can monitor either at a summary level or a detail level material shortages. You can manage product lines and work centers, release production orders based on availability. This is a great new set of functions that you should investigate. The basic scenario for locations and processes: you've got your controlled locations, stockroom, production line, and work centers, and shop floor, production line, backflush, and work center. So you receive materials, you issue materials, replenish your reserved locations. You can dispatch to the shop floor, either to production orders or to the backflush locations, and then transfer material from the receiver to the backflush, and then you can consume from those backflush locations. The 1.1.18.13 work center reserved location. This works in conjunction with the production line reserved locations to designate shop floor inventory that are going to be used for certain work centers or production lines. You can set those up, define your work center. You can leave this blank if you wanted to apply to all part numbers. There's a new preference field. This is amazingly powerful. You can determine what sequence you want these work centers to be reserved, and then if you want to assign that to a specific part number, you can. The 1.1.18.16 production line. This is defining shop locations for inventory quantities that will be consumed at a production line. Again, You define it for the production line, leave it blank if you want it for all part numbers. Again, that preference field, you need to investigate that preference field. It's a great tool. And then if you want, you can denote that for individual part numbers. We've talked about the 1.1.1 inventory status code. This is a great tool for control out on the shop in terms of locations. You can restrict transactions. If you want to restrict transactions or changes to production status based on various issues, receipts, rejects, release, work order adds, you can use this. The 16.3.24 production order control, all functions in QAD. There's a control file to set the parameters and default functionality. So the production control or production order control, you can denote the work order number or the production order number next. You can have comments. There's some default parameter values for maintaining production orders. Do you want to issue to the first operation? Yield. There's a quantity complete method that you can define for the system. You can define default values for production order release and print. Again, you can have quantity completed versus processed. There's some PICKLIST parameters. There's some control parameters. You can set this do reason code criticality for backflush, whether you want a warning or you want a hard stop on it. And there's this new zero balance, if we all remember to the 3.23, the zero balance, delete, and archive. You also have now that same basic functionality within work in process for non-milestone operations in terms of backflush, subcontracting, and purchasing. This is a new function, production activity threshold level. You can define at what point you want any production activity to take place. Valid values are firmed, explode, allocated, or released. Whole new set of controls for repetitive functionality, for repetitive control. And you also got this new production activity threshold for repetitive. At the site level, there you can set the production activity threshold for either work orders or repetitive. And then you've got process parameters for determining how you handle open quantities for the site. The 16.1 allows you to set up production lines. If your company has multiple production lines dedicated to create certain products, and a lot of us have this kind of functionality, by line rather by item, you set up a production line. This is used extensively and repetitive, and we talked about it a couple of months ago in terms of operations planning. The 16.1 production line maintenance, you can create any number of different kinds of production lines, and then there are a whole new set of parameters, units per hour, enable run size, lines, buffers, setup time, minimum values. There's the backflush location for this product line. There's the transaction quantity method you can use. You can firm, you can nail a scheduler for it, and then some time horizons. So you define your production lines, and then you assign each individual item to a production line. This ties the production line to the individual item produced on that line. Again, units per hour, number of lines, all the setups, default routings, default BOM codes, tools, run sequences can be assigned to the item. You can use 16.1.16 production line item update to do mass updates for items, delete items, change make buy codes, BOM routing. You also have the 16.1.17 where your production line, you can change things according to the order. If it's an exploded order, the allocated orders, you can change setup times, tools, run size, all of those parameters, all in simulation and actual update mode. The 16.3 is the primary menu that we're going to use for production orders. You've got your production order maintenance, bill maintenance, routing. We talked about the patrol, but there's a whole bunch of other functionality that you should investigate for that. The production order fundamentals itself, you create an item for production at a site, obviously. Then you've got the order type and the manufacturing type to determine how or what that production order is going to be. You define what production line you're going to create it on. You've got a status, your routing codes. We talked about both the alternate BOMs and routings, release dates, and now you've got this new quantity to start and expected quantity to complete. The production orders are just like work orders. They're responses to demand for material, and this is what we use to control and monitor the progress of cost of manufacturing. Standard dates in the production orders. Again, we talked about dates and their importance in January. We've got the release date, due date, need date, and order date for the production order. Then the quantities, and this is where the new functionality really comes into play. You've got a new field here, quantity to complete. So this is the expected quantity to complete. You've also got a quantity to begin producing, quantity to start. That's new. And those are both based upon this estimated yield, which comes from your 1.4.7. If you can put both the quantity complete, quantity start equal. You can put in quantity start and it'll calculate the quantity complete. Same as the verse, it'll calculate what you think you're going to estimate to be scrapped. You've got some actual quantity complete and actual scrapped values that you can use there. And then there is this new auto schedule functionality in the production orders. Lots of other ways to create production orders. MRP is going to plan the production orders just like it did with the old work orders. If you've got configured items, you can use the 8.13, sales are released to production order. If you use RMAs in service and support, the 11.715 release to a production order. We talked about the routing of the routable components. And if you use service and support, you can use the call activity control, which is in essence new production order. There's this great new tool, 16.3.13, production order comment viewer. How many of us have had comments sitting in the old 16.1? Hard to get at. This is a new tool. You can put any kind of comment you want on any page. Notes for delivery, technical notes, commerce, etc., all based on the type of a comment that you've got. Very effective tool. Production order types pretty much the same. Blank is a standard work order, uses standard product and structure or the alternates that we talked about. You can use expense work orders and rework work orders. Expense, don't have any routers in operations, you create them in the new 16.3.4 and 16.3.6. You've got the rework, which creates a work order with only one component, obviously the part that you're going to rework, and no router, so you build your router or add additional parts. You can create repetitive schedules and cumulative orders. We'll talk about that a little later in the year when we cover the repetitive functionality of production orders. Then if you use configured products, you've got a FAS schedule, and you can also use co and byproducts with the new production orders. The status codes, there is your production activity threshold that we talked about. We've got planned, firmed, exploded, allocated, released, and closed. If you notice, there is no batch status anymore. With the new functionality, it was determined that that is not required any longer, so the batch status code is gone. You can also change status codes for multiple orders. You should obviously put security on this, and if you've got a standard work order or final assembly, you can do this mass change to status codes. 16.3.4, similar to our old 16.3.1 production order maintenance. This lists the components required for production orders, and then you can also use the 16.3.6 production order routing maintenance. This is similar to our old 16.13.13. 16.5 production materials menu. This controls and supports the supply of material from controlled inventory locations such as stockroom and warehouse to support production schedules and activity. So there's basically two new types of pick lists. We have the old standard production order pick list, create it, pick it, print the pick list, pick it, and record the material. But you've also got a new bulk item pick list. This lists the materials to be transferred to the shop floor for one or more production orders. The system goes through and looks at the controlled locations and shop floor locations to look at the sequence to pick. It starts with the work order backflush, then it looks at the production line backflush, then goes to the work center reserve location, then to the production line reserve location, and then we'll go and look at remaining locations for the sequence of those pick lists. So 16.4.2, which used to be our 16.6, prints the pick list for the production order, looks at the component requirements, operations, test specifications. If engineers have made modifications, you can calculate a pick list. Need to pay a whole lot of attention to this new pick list functionality. You can print the pick list, you can print additional copies. Shortage tags, great new tool for the shop floor and the warehouse. And you can both print barcode for numeric or alpha format for automated solutions. Releasing a production order has the following effect. Items not previously allocated are allocated based on the setting of the allocation policy in the item. Do you remember where we talked about that allocation policy in 1.4.16? Then the list is printed. A first operation is moved if you've got that set in the production order. Lots of ways to release those work orders. You also have what are called directed and non-directed pick lists. In directed picking, you pick the inventory using the pick list that shows the item quantity and locations from which you pick. Then, you confirm that the pick quantities were picked from that location specified on the pick list. A non-directed pick list, you pick the inventory using a pick list that shows the item quantities, and then you record which item quantity, locations, and serial numbers, etc. you picked. For a production order pick list, you pick materials for the production order, you dispatch and move the production order with the materials from the stockroom to the floor. For bulk item pick list, you pick the materials and then transfer the material to those new shop floor locations. So the process is, again, you've got your shop floor, you create the pick list, you pick the quantities as normal, then you issue those picked, move the production to the floor, and then you can either move to a work center location, transfer, and then you can backflush those locations. The 16.5.1 production order allocate, we talked about allocations previously, detailed versus general. If you want to calculate the pick list and create pick lists, you need to set that little flag to yes, that'll create your pick lists. The 16.5.3 bulk item pick list. This allows you to create the pick list for a particular shop floor location, one pick list per. The 16.5.2 production order manual allocation, you can use this to update detail allocation for components on a particular production order. The production order pick list itself is associated with the production order requirements. This is the 16.4.2. You can print the pick list at any status. You can print both for MPS and non-MPS, repetitive or work order, or printed, unpicked, picked, and this will give you your production order pick list. This again is similar to the old 16.6. You can release a work order without printing shop packet data. If you've got a paperless system, it's much more common for production items. So you can set those parameters to just release without a shop order. Or you can use the 16.4.5, which is a production order sheet print. You can use this if you need required shop documentation for various activities. This can be attached to the product, either as is completed out of manufacturing back into the stockroom. And then you've got the 16.5.9 production pick list transfer. Use this production pick list transfer to transfer inventory that has a pick policy set to transfer. Remember, we are discussion of 1.4.16. The 16.5.5 production order pick list, you can use this to print the pick list for the production order, and then you could use that in 16.5.11 to just go ahead and use that pick list to issue to the production order. Or you can update the production shortages based on 16.5.7, based on either a general or an allocated process. And then the 16.5.12 production order component issue. This again is very similar to our old 16.10. This is where you issue components to either a released or an allocated process. So here's the first frame of the production order release or the production order component issue. You've got an option here to have a default quantity issue. You can do it by allocations, none, or quantity open. You can set what operation you want to issue to. Remember, we talked about opcode in 15.5 and 13.5, or you could use this new pack functionality, which is just absolutely phenomenal. The 16.5.12, you use a component issue frame of the production order component issue to denote the location, lot sequence, reference, quantity of components. Then you've got a review document that you review all of the quantity issues that you've got. There's this new 16.3.5 production order bill. This is a great tool. There's more information on there than you would ever need to control manufacturing production orders. Production order transactions are very similar to the old standard work orders, except for you've got this new transaction. You need to take a look at that in terms of 3.21.2. This is called con work, and this is basically for the and-on dashboard functionality, because in repetitive, when you had a RCT-WO, it basically wiped all of the information out. So they created this consolidated work order transaction that keeps the definite or the information for the manufacturing and-on dashboards. You can use production split. I don't recommend it. I don't think people usually use it, but it's not a real good. It adds to confusion. What happens to the material you issued to the base? How does that go? What happens to labor applied? Accountants really don't like this splitting functionality. It causes lots of confusion. So once you've issued the parts and applied the labor, which we'll talk about later in the year, you've got your 16.13.1. Now that used to be what? Work order bill maintenance. Not anymore. It's now 16, or it used to be 16.11. Now it is 16.13.1. And so here you use this to receive parts, quantity complete, quantity scrapped. We talked about that in terms of the yield. You've got a reason code functionality you can use. You can view this in terms of its schedule and other schedules. You can modify inventory as you actually do the work order receipt. You can do that. You can calculate a backflush and the most important close order checkbox. The 16.13.1 component issue. This frame defines the components to be issued on the production order and affords the ability to substitute quantities required, lot, etc. Then it comes up with a receipt data input frame where you can put the quantity that you're going to receive, location, lot serial, etc. It gives you a nice little receipt data frame that you can review what you've done. And then you always, good idea to go back into 3.21 to 2, the transaction by item browse, just to make sure that everything processed as proper. The 16.13 production order activity, we'll talk about the production order receipt. You've also got operation, labor, rework, move. Those are the ones we'll talk about later in the year. You want to make sure that your shop floor activities around production orders are well defined in terms of these new locations for inventory processing, backflush transactions, etc. The 16.13.13, this is the new transaction that you're going to use to record. There's new errors. I mentioned errors and warnings. This will not allow you to process a production order unless you're at a particular production activity threshold. Again, we'll talk about this later in the year. And then we've got the production order accounting menu. There's several new reports in here for planning, manufacturing, engineering to review variances and production order costs. The 16.20.10 is the new production accounting close. This is where all of the production order accounts are closed out, variances are posted, and operations processed to the general ledger. The 16.25 production order utility, lots of new utilities. You can convert purchase orders, you can transfer reason codes, you've got some new automated solutions processes down there. So this would require a whole bunch of investigation. Just a quick word about gather data or automated solutions. Automated solutions is basically the new barcode functionality for receiving, production, shipping, inventory. This allows you to do a much better job of reducing time for data processing, reduces error, increases data accuracy, prevents record locking, you can print labels, lots of good functionality for gather data. As we've said, if you're not doing barcoding, you have to do barcoding. Just a couple of examples, there were 30 transactions that are built into the gather data automated solutions, and it's real easy. The screens are click, click, click. It's that simple. Production guys, warehouse, they love this new functionality. As with any function in QAD, the process maps are an excellent method to learn and understand any new function. I highly recommend you do that. The system has all of these new production collections, simplifies searching, navigating, order selection, processing, production order, routings, components, transactions. You've got shop floor collection, pick list collections, monitor material, production operation activity, release production orders. These are basically lots of different menus that have been brought into one place that a planner or a warehouse or an operations guy can use to do his job. Here's the new basic setup of the new production order. 31 browses, 22 reports, not a whole lot of inquiries, but and then the maintenance, and you need to pay attention to those maintenance functionalities. In today's multi-mix manufacturing environment required by the new global supply chain, these new production orders that have been provided by QAD allow users and organizations to execute discrete work orders, repetitive master schedule orders through one consistent interface. The additional new functionality of production orders afford new tools for controlling material, pick and flow through work center locations at both inside and outside subcontractors. We've talked in all of our webinars about the need for data accuracy and business process consistency. Production orders afford these new functions in today's manufacturing environments. The setup and statement and use of production orders requires detailed thought, consistent discipline in the application of work order process and flow. If you are interested in learning more about production orders, I've found these helpful. The production order material essentials, the production order release notes, always good to keep up to date. Lots of changes going on in terms of automated solutions, etc. The production order execution guide. I've also found the production order training guides, production order user guides, and number one, read the help. There's lots to learn. We've talked about 32Soft in the past. 32Soft has a whole bevy of uploaders or data applications, easy installation. There's a 60-day complimentary trial, no cost. It works with SE, EE, and Cloud, familiar Excel format. And Alex, Christian, Alina, Andreas have already made these particular 32Soft loaders work with the new data structures in 2020. I thought I would take just a minute to illustrate one of the new production order data loaders for the 2020 production order creation. Here we have the 32Soft data loader 16.3.1 version 2.2.4 for production order maintenance, which we have upgraded for all of the requirements of the new picking logic and product line processes for the new production orders. I will go ahead and load a series of 10 production orders because manually entering data into the 16.3.1 production order menu can be tedious with several frames and fields to navigate through. I'll create the new orders at a weekly interval for firm planned orders and the production order quantities starting at 100 with a +5 for each subsequent order. With the data loaders, you can pre-designate production order sequences, or you could just go ahead and let the system create production orders according to the 16.3.24 production order control file. To begin with, you can see that the series of production orders I will load do not exist in the 16.3.2 production order browse. So all I need to do is create the work order. And as you can see, we processed with a successful note in the data loader, or my 16.3.2 production order, and do the selection, and there are the work orders. So in closing, you can manage the entire production process with this new production order mode. The only choice you have to make is how much control you want over processing, picking, allocation, component issues, and how much detail you need for costing and traceability. Again, one single centralized solution to better meet customer requirements through improved visibility and transparent production management. We hope you've enjoyed this short review of the functionality around new production orders. We think this new set of functionalities can significantly contribute to increased levels of control in a mixed mode manufacturing environment. We wish you the best for the remainder of 2021. Looks like we've made it half through. And again, MUG, WUG, and SUG are having in-person conferences in the fall. We encourage you to come out and support your local groups, and please contact Denise or I if you have any additional questions after the webinar.
Let's see, training, whether attrition or need for process consistency improvement, we are happy to help with your training needs. My stats still need updating, but if you need any training assistance, whether individual or group, and of course for any level of proficiency, let us know. As Don mentioned, the user groups have scheduled their fall in-person conferences. 32Soft will be at both the Midwest and West Coast conferences in September and October. Now, what Don didn't mention is that his presentations consistently rank among the most popular. In fact, I will tell you that I distinctly recall Don's number of attendees in the spring being second to only the keynote speaker. Not trying to embarrass you, Don, but you have, you've become somewhat of a legend. And we are lucky to have you. As far as webinars go, in August, we have simple PCO, PCC management, followed in September by get control and visibility of back-to-back orders. And then in October, our topic ties directly back to today, fast, accurate, and easy production planning. Oh, hold on, here we go. I have a screenshot teaser for you. All versions of this loader work with production orders, and you get real-time access to QAD data and instant visibility of work order quantities, available resources, and planned demands. And I am going on. Let's see, that's October. So today is production orders. So back to production orders. And Don has shown that, of course, there is an extensive amount of new functionality. And we all know the very real benefits of continuous improvement. So as in all aspects of life, not just business, the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement.
Love your quotes. Those are great quotes. Good,
Thanks,
good stuff.
Don. Did we cover everything we need to for today?
Just a word. I have been obviously investigating these new production orders for a couple of months now, and I'm working with a company out here in California that is implementing the new production orders, and they the functionality is just amazing. These new collections, the ability of the new pick lists that can be done with these locations, both production line, work center. Talk about control out on the shop floor. You are going to know exactly what's going on, where everything is, what the cost is. They are truly a step up in the ability of QAD to deal with multi-mode functionality, and it's all in one thing. You don't have to go from 18.22 to 16.1 to it's all there in one place. It does require a little bit of knowledge and understanding. You got to play with the tool, but the new production orders are great stuff. I'm looking forward to Mug to do a little bit more of an expose on some of the picking logic and etc. So yeah, thank you for your attendance, and I'm glad everybody is doing well. Regrettably, out here in California, they're put our mask mandate back on, so we have to wear a mask every time we go shopping or anyplace else. But I hope everybody is safe and sound, and thank you for your attendance today.
Yes, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Don, huge thanks. Fantastic as always. From all of us here at 32Soft, have a great day, everybody. Keep safe.